All right. Okay. I guess we should be back. I hope at least. Shall see if this is a bit better. Yeah. So sorry for that. As I said, we're trying to. Oops. We're trying to play with the video settings for a bit, and I kind of reduced that a bit more down. So hopefully it's a bit less laggy. And we shall see if this now goes a bit better. So, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, and I'm not sure how much you could even understand from this broken and laggy stream. So I guess what I'm gonna do is I just quickly repeat what I was just saying earlier, because I think one of the things that I really feel right now that is missing, or I mean, especially I guess if you're in SEO, but also in search in general, right, is that we all somewhat need how you say, like our peers and our friends and just the industry around us to kind of exchange ideas, discuss things, find our peers and ask them questions so that we can challenge ourselves. And I guess we all somewhat in I would say almost like, yeah, it's a situation that has never been there before. And so I kind of like, and that's probably also myself, like, at some point I was like, whom do I talk to? What's the, what are we doing to compensate for the lack of conferences, right? Because I mean, Dominique, you spend quite a lot of time on events around the globe as well, and I think one of the things that I always find quite valuable, and that I think is probably the most valuable thing, next to the great sessions and talks, obviously, is that like we can talk to like-minded people, right, and exchange ideas and knowledge and whatnot, and this is completely missing, right? I guess Dominique is on mute, or maybe at least, or I can't hear her. So yeah, there we go. That also doesn't seem to work. But then I just kind of continue and see if we can get her back in at some point in time. So Dominique, if you're back, give me a quick shout. All right. So one of the things that I feel that we should discuss and that we should address is also that for the entire situation that we are in, as business owners, business leaders, managers, but also like people working in search, that could be just freelancers or like generally if you somewhat having a business right now, or running a business, I guess we all feel and have somewhat to deal with a situation which is very, very uncertain, right? And that said, like I think that like an open dialogue can only help. So in the future, what I want to do is I will try to provide, or we are going to provide, like an overview of how's the current situation around search. What does and how does this entire crisis potentially impact this entire like industry. I mean, not only our industry obviously, but also the kind of the business landscape in general. I feel that there's not enough exchange going on right now. I understand that there's some groups in the evening where you can just meet and chat, but like I think the challenge that we have right now, at least that's true for me, and I'm not sure if you guys would agree, but I think the challenge that we have right now is that there's a lot of information out there. Some of it is good, some of it is bad. Some are essentially must reads, especially if you're running business or if you're responsible for business in a sense. And that said, like why and how to manage that and that workload in comparison to like, I mean, we also still have like day-to-day work, right? And we somewhat need to manage that as well. So I suppose like this is going to be a bit of the idea as well, that we're trying to kind of give you a bit of the must reads and kind of condense a bit of the must have stuff out there that I feel somewhat is having an impact on the industry. At least I'd say that's the idea, and I guess that's what we're trying to do. And that combined with the fact that I'm thinking like an AMA kind of questions format where you can send questions beforehand, but also not only beforehand, obviously also during the chat during the stream is something that we can try and see if you guys find it valuable. And if so, then I'm happy to kind of continue that. If not, well, then it was just one of my stupid ideas, and then we just leave it be. So completely open. That means we are trying to find a format that is useful. And if you would agree and if you like it, let me know. We're happy to see some feedback, written or wherever how to reach me or us, I guess. And then we see if we can make this somehow useful for everyone. So what I'm trying to do now is trying to get Dominique back in, because I actually want to chat about one or two content pieces that came out in the last couple of days actually. So let's see if this Skype dial-in works now.
Hello.
See, there she is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
Great.
So that was so Skype dial-in is not a good idea. I think this is what we take away from this. Perfect. Yeah. So what I was just saying when I kind of was describing the general idea of what we're going to do, I thought like I try to bring you back so that we can discuss a bit about the kind of the Coronafied platform. I kind of did a very, very brief idea concept behind it, so that we are going to provide or trying to provide a bit of an overview of content that's out there that is kind of must reads and kind of knowledge that's somewhat important for business owners, business leaders alike. And I think the other thing, and I think it's great that you're back, I guess, is that we will in the future kind of talking a bit about content in general, right? So because I guess also what we see right now as an agency is that, of course, like some of the campaigns that we have planned right now, they just simply don't make any sense, right? But I guess there's a lot of other stuff that you can do, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we should have a deeper something is wrong with my sound at the moment, I guess. But yeah, we should have a deeper talk maybe about the content infrastructure at the moment, because I just went through some news in terms of content formats which work at the moment, which not, and in general, like the media landscape, how is that changing? So I think there's a lot of topics to discuss on that.
And I guess also, right, I mean, your team does a lot of like content campaigns, around, and then obviously seeding and outreach and those things, right? And I guess, I mean, especially in the last weeks, there was literally, it felt like no coverage except for anything around the corona virus situation. I mean, obviously, right? But I mean, that has an impact on like how we do, or probably like in SEO in general right now. So I guess that's probably also something that we need to kind of address in one of the future episodes.
Yeah, exactly. I think also in terms of different, not only about different industries, but also about different countries, because I also saw some interesting tweets, what's going on in terms of link building and media coverage in the UK, and there it doesn't seem to have any impact. But on the other side, in Germany, it's pretty hard to get any kind of content into media. Yeah. So I think this could be also super interesting.
Yeah, I guess, and then also on top of all of that, right, I think also like the somewhat like, let's say, classic content campaigning format is maybe also something. I mean, granted, of course, there are still topics that do work, and for some industries it does make more sense than others. But I mean, let's put aside the fact that if you're in travel right now, then I guess there's no sense in running any kind of campaigns, at least more or less. Sure. But I guess then it's also about shifting within the discipline, right? So there's a lot of potentially crisis management or community management and those types of things that sure. need to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's something that we want to kind of touch on probably for one of the next episodes. What I wanted to do today as well is, so I guess that's the one idea. The second idea is to kind of really give you guys a bit of like, so I'm for those of you who know me a bit better, and I guess also knows PKs a bit better, like we are relatively straightforward, and some might say we're very German. So just very just very direct, if that makes any sense. So like I just when I was screening through like a lot of the news that were out there or that are out there right now, there's a lot of like fluffy stuff that is just a waste of time to read, right? So one of the things that I want to do in the next week actually is to bring on 2 or 3 people, depending on how often we kind of get this thing running, but just discuss like different areas, right? So there's I think one side is the legal aspects around employment situations, and just generally the perspective on like the financials of it. I guess that could be something very interesting, especially for like the business side of it. But also there's actually a very good friend of mine, Kevin Indig. Kevin, shout out if you're watching this. And that's actually he kind of created an interesting post which we actually put on our like mini portal that we launched. So I'm trying to see if this works, but if I switch over, you should actually see the website, or mini website, I think it is right now, which we launched earlier this week. And the idea with the platform is basically just to have a home during a situation like this, where we kind of have, right now it's only 3 sections, but like the one that we call is Spotlight. So I think those are like, I would call them really must reads for anyone kind of somewhat being responsible for business, budget, and things like that. So those are the 4 picks for now. And there's one in there, the third one actually, it's called The COVID-19 Crisis is Transforming the Way We Use Software. So
Bastian,
actually, yeah.
Sorry, just let me interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Are you sharing your screen at the moment? Because I'm checking. Sorry?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, because on Facebook, I think I just see you, but not your screen.
That's weird. Okay, interesting. So then I probably just pop back to the big screen.
Now it's there.
Oh, it's there. So it's slightly delayed. Okay, fair enough. Then it works. Perfect. So yeah, maybe it's the transition of the software scene that's happening. But yeah, so I was showing them like the homepage of like coronafight.net, where like the third piece in the middle is actually one that Kevin and his team wrote, and I think I want to get him on the stream next week, talk about this, because I think it's really like this crisis in general is not only changing the way we use software, but it's also changing the way people are searching, especially right now, which is, I think, really interesting for us as marketers. And then there's 2 other sections further down. We just not go into this now, but those are like our handpicked for like, stuff that you need to see from a business perspective, but also stuff that you need to see from a search perspective. So like we're updating this daily, frequency is kicking up. So I guess if you needed one-stop shop for just articles worthwhile reading, then this could be something that I would recommend you guys have a look at. But coming back to this to the spotlights for a second, there is actually one thing. The COVID-19 impacted Google Ads results. It's a study that the guys at WordStream have been doing, I think just recently, so last week. And there were some really interesting things in there. And I think this is also something that I kind of would recommend you guys have a look at, because essentially what they found is, since the COVID-19 kind of became like really big in the United States, so roughly like 2 or 3 weeks ago, conversion rates have been dropping by an average of roughly over 20% sometimes. Obviously depending on industries, clearly, but this is like an absolute must read, I think, in from my mind, if you're doing any paid search advertising. And then, I mean, of course, it's also drilling down into the different industries and different sectors to be a bit more granular. But obviously, these observations are somewhat the same, right? And I think also, Dominique, that ties a bit into a topic that we're having, because I mean, we're also dealing, of course, with travel clients. We are dealing, but not only with travel clients, but also with industries that are somewhat, like, I would say right now, indirectly impacted. So I think one of the examples that we had is recruiting, right? I mean, obviously recruiting is slowing down right now. So like, top of your head, what would you do? I mean, like, I think always the question, of course, is like, do you need to really cut budgets because business is falling apart? I mean, there's not much that we as marketers can advise if you have to do significant cutbacks, and I suppose some of us are in this situation, which is totally understandable. But like, if you would like just have this situation where it's like, well, right now to advertise heavy on recruiting, even though some industries are obviously still recruiting and that doesn't probably change. But like, what would you advise to a company like that? Is that like stay in the channel, shift the channels, do something entirely different? What's like top of your head? What would you do? I mean,
yeah, that's pretty tricky. But
we're here to do tricky questions, no?
Sure. So staying there, I think, is always super relevant. I mean, I think it's not a question of about if you should stay there, but maybe where you should stay. So, of course, I mean, like paid ads doesn't make any or not that much sense at the moment or during that time. But I mean, there are a lot of other opportunities, I guess. So, I mean, we can talk about like lead nurturing for one example. Or the other thing is, I mean, because the people are still there, right? So what we should do is taking or changing the way of communication, I guess, in the very beginning. So being in touch with your target audience and really try to find out what your target audience is interested in the moment.
Yeah.
So check on a daily basis what is going on, and also check like what kind of or how the user and search behavior is changing at the moment, and deliver that on the specific channels. So which means be more active maybe on social media, getting in touch with people over there and strengthen your community management, for example. So I think this is super relevant on that.
And I suppose also, I mean, the other thing that is still like could be a take as well, right? Like, I mean, obviously you're losing potentially. If you would just kind of compare your channels now versus compare your channels, let's just say 4 to 6 weeks ago, obviously most of them would probably see less traffic, right? But I mean, another approach certainly could also be, to just go and work on shift the budget into something like conversion rate optimization, right? I mean, because like lower traffic, I mean, even more important than that, you potentially kind of work on converting what's left, if that makes any sense, a bit better, right? I mean, that could also be approach. So an approach, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So everything around conversion rate optimization is more relevant than ever, I guess, during that kind of time we have, on top of the way of communication, I guess. But also, whenever you work on your conversion rate optimization, it's also super important to deliver. So coming back to content, of course, delivering useful content for people at the moment, right? So getting in touch with them via different kind of channels, of course, to also collect data, to get in touch with them later, maybe when they need you back.
Clearly. And I guess also one of the things that I noted, and I think we had a brief chat about that as well in the last days. So I think what's right now also like a very, very important thing is that like, especially messaging, you probably need to be even more careful than you have been before. So I think someone tweeted something that BMW did, and they were trying to advertise for one of the new BMW cars by jumping on this kind of flattening the curve hashtag, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? So I think like, I'm thinking like content right now, at least I feel, I mean, it's always a sensitive topic in general, right? I mean, we're dealing with things like, communication guidelines, obviously, and then you're working with branding guidelines and tone of voice and whatnot. But I think especially now, it's even more important, or probably more important than ever, to be very precise with messaging, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's emotional times for a lot of people at the moment. So people are losing their jobs and are having different kind of fears. So I think it's important to deliver something or deliver whatever people need at the moment. But being super, super careful, or being more careful than ever with your tone of voice, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Is there anything else that like instantly comes to mind if you think about it? It's like what would you say? Like, I mean, I guess tone and also visual. I mean, I suppose visual is the same story, right? I mean, and I'm like, I think we made the same mistake, right? I mean, when I kind of quickly launched this kind of Corona site, at the Corona fight website, like, so the default image and like was actually some people, because it was kind of trying to reflect like reading and must read stuff, but then you have like smiling faces, and this doesn't really reflect with the situation that we're having right now. So I guess like the sensitivity there is really something that we as marketers probably need to be even more aware of, in comparison to where like we were, like, 3 months ago. You would just have like, well, okay, that wasn't great, but it wasn't like an entire disaster. But I think this can now be way, way, way faster, and go the wrong way than ever before, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just thinking about what's important right now as well. So you were already touching on conversion rate optimization. So I think which we should not forget is the whole part of tracking at the moment, right? So optimize your tracking at the moment is super useful, because as mentioned before, so user behavior is changing massively at the moment. So I think all the data we have from I don't know, the last 12 months are completely irrelevant. How's the word?
That's a great word for a German. Yeah, I know. Irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
Yep,
Wow,
yep.
hard word.
Hard word.
So, which means, especially during that times, it's you should work on your tracking optimization, of course, to get more useful data about your potential clients or your users. Yeah.
And I guess also, I mean, that leads into the next topic, right? I mean, and there's like a whole bunch of them, but like that leads into like, if you do like comparison reports, right? I mean, they can also be entirely flawed, because you're like comparing like an extraordinary situation that we have right now versus something that was potentially totally fine. I mean, depending on how your business did, but I would suppose like all of them were like doing good or better. So I think like comparison of numbers is also really, really tough right now.
Yeah, definitely. So basically not possible, right?
Yeah, probably not really. I mean, at least there's probably something that comes out which doesn't tell you much. So I suppose like one of the things that is potentially like a way to fix this, or at least to look at it, is like to start like looking at from when did this entire craziness start, and then how is it evolving. So like, would you see like a slight recovery at some point? But also I think what is really interesting when we're going back to this study from WordStream actually, is the fact that like, how does your performance actually relate to the performance of like, so if you have like a 20% less clicks, right, in general, and I'm not a paid search guy, but obviously that means that's not only true for you but for a lot of other people as well. So I suppose like a bit of common sense, looking left and right and center, also is kind of important if you do that, because otherwise like, well, I lost 20%, but is that okay? Is that the norm? Is that is that something extraordinary? So I think that is also super important with reporting and like the dashboards that are currently out there, because I'd suppose most of them compare like month over month or year over year even, and then of course that data is completely broken right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you need to define completely new baselines, right?
Yeah, true. Very true. Another thing, like one of our team members mentioned, and I think it was Paul who runs paid social. So another thing that we saw is messaging in around e-commerce, right? So like when you right now say something like the best time for shopping, the question is that really the right messaging at this current situation? Because well, probably the answer is there's, I mean, except for the stuff that you really need and like the purchases that you need to make, that's pretty much it, right? So like I think advertisement for shopping in that sense is really tough. However, though, on the other hand, right, it's also, there's a bunch of opportunities there. So if you now probably jump on this entire situation and create messaging around, working from home, or even more precise, like, home office and whatnot. I think there's a bunch of opportunities. So I guess like this entire messaging and wording in a bigger picture is probably super, super, super important.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so people are trying to get all those fast moving customer goods, of course, as soon as possible. If it's from a supermarket or via, I don't know, Amazon or whatever, they want to have those. But I think there are a bunch of people who are not sure how their financial situation will change during the next few weeks.
Exactly.
So they're not interested in, I think they have other problems than, I don't know, shopping for any kind of other stuff. So I think the messaging there should change drastically.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess also, as for like maybe the closing topic for today's kind of test, and then we have a bit of homework to do in terms of getting this better. And then if you guys like it, we're probably going to be back early next week. I suppose like a Tuesday is maybe a good spot. But I think like one of the closing topics that I think is also quite interesting, at least right now, if you look at it from a general search perspective, so to speak. Like, I mean, you already said like people have potentially other worries, and I guess also the same is true for some of the businesses that they have to cut back in a sense of ad spend and whatnot. And of course, and we note that as well. I mean, we would be lying if I would be saying we're not. Like, of course, paid search budgets are usually the ones that are being cut back the fastest. However, usually they come also back as quickly as it's possible, because that's the beauty of the paid search channels, right? They scale very efficiently up and down. But I guess from an speaking from an SEO perspective, or like an organic search perspective in a broader sense, I think what's also really important is that I would right now at least try to advise that if you can afford it, don't cut your organic search budget just yet, because like even if so, two reasons, right? I mean, the one reason, obviously, we all aware that like there's this latency in measures and whatnot, but also secondly, if the paid search space becomes a bit less crowded and organic results kind of come a bit higher up. So that's probably also something that we need to address. And there was a good article from a friend of mine called Nick Eubanks, shout out to him as well, from the States, who kind of made some very, very good points. And I guess we're going to go into this next week as well, as to why a channel shift is really important, and why kind of at least staying with, if you can, into some of the disciplines more than others, because there's this lack in results is quite important. So sadly, it seems that Dominique's Skype again froze, so she just messaged me that she dropped out, which is a bit of a shame, so she can't say goodbye. But I will do that instead. We're trying to fix a bit of the setup. I think Skype dial-in is not a great idea, so we're just trying to see if we come up with something else. And then I will start playing or reducing the video quality a bit further. I think that should work then quite okay, at least for the last 20 minutes. It looked quite okay from what I've seen. And I would really love to see your feedback on the general idea, on like the concept of it. If you feel like an AMA type of video stream in this situation with a bunch of predefined topics is something that you would find helpful, I think that would be really cool. Also, if you have anything worth sharing around this situation that's helpful for people that are somewhat kind of affected, and I guess we all, some more, some less, but especially from a business perspective, I would really be happy to see you just popping up a comment or sending an email, so that we can just take it, discuss it, share it with a wider audience. I think this is what it's all about, like really kind of sharing what's worth sharing, so that we kind of all can cut through the bullshit and just focus on our work as well. I think that's super, super important. That said, this is it for the very first one. I'm sorry for the tech problems. I'm sure we're going to figure it out in the next couple of days. I wish you all a fantastic remaining work day. For some of you, that's already over. For some, you're just getting started. Have a fantastic day. And we, when Dominique is back next time, speak to you early next week. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.